and welcome to Horror Historian. My name is Amanda, and tonight we'll be discussing the paranormal series Sinister. The first movie is apparently the most scientifically scary movie to ever exist. I don't know if I necessarily agree with that. I do not find this to be, in my personal top 10 scariest movies, but, science, science. Not even close, if we're being honest. But regardless of my personal feelings, that is what it is. So it made sense that there would be an attempt at a franchise. There was a second one, and honestly, I don't think it was as bad as it was originally portrayed. It's not as good as the first one by a mile, but it's at least interesting enough to not be the worst sequel. Trigger warnings for death of children and domestic violence. Sinister was released in 2012 and was directed by Scott Derrickson. He is most known for The Exorcism of Emily Rose, The Black Phone, which is the sequel's just coming out, I think, and The Gorge. This was written by C. Robert Cargill. He works pretty often with Derrickson. He is most known for Sinister 2, Doctor Strange, The Black Phone, and a segment of VHS 85. The stars are Ethan Hawke, Juliet Raylan, James Ransom, and Vincent D'Onofrio. Okay, Vincent D'Onofrio is more of a cameo appearance than anything else. He's not even credited. Hawke is most known for The Dead Poet Society, Boyhood, The Black Phone, and Training Day. Rylance is most known for Perry Mason, The Nick, and A Dog's Purpose. And Ronson is most known for these movies, Tangerine, and he played Adult Eddie in the It series. D'Onofrio is most known for Full Metal Jacket, Men in Black, and The Whole Wide World, and he plays Kingpin in the MCU. The movie doesn't waste any time, so neither will we. It opens with a family being hanged from a tree. It's a counterweight system with the heavy weight on the heavy tree limb on the other side crashing to the ground while their feet are lifted up. They struggle for a moment, but one by one they fall still, to be discovered by whoever.
We then meet the Oswald family as they move into their new home. Ellison is the father, a once famous true crime author. His glory days were about 10 years ago, prior when he released his best-selling book, Kentucky Blood. Since then, nothing has really matched that success, and his reputation has suffered because of it. His books sell enough, just not enough to really be worth moving and disrupting their kids' lives. One major issue is that he's burned bridges with law enforcement, and it's a pretty constant issue every time they move. The local sheriff, played by Fred Thompson, waits outside to have a word with him. The sheriff makes it clear he finds Ellison's entire move in poor taste. It's just a hint at this point, but it really doesn't take a genius to figure out where exactly they moved. Ellison doesn't seem too concerned about the sheriff's disapproval. Instead, he's much more focused on his daughter Ashley, who isn't happy about the move. He promised she could paint on the walls of her room, and she's already started. The family dynamic is cute, but the pressure on Ellison is immediately evident. His wife makes it clear that this is his last shot. If this book is a flop, she's done. She married him after Kentucky Blood, aware that writing about murder was his job, but she wants stability. Textbooks over grisly bestsellers, which, frankly, he hasn't had one in a while. Ashley is the younger sibling, and compared to her brother, she's a little bit less demanding. Trevor is a little bit older, and he's had a history of night terrors and sleepwalking. Still, when the family initially moves in, everything seems okay. A little stressed with the move, and starting a new school, but they're okay. It kind of seems like they're used to it. Putting everything away, Ellison discovers a box in the attic. Inside, he finds several 8mm film reels, each labeled like ordinary home movies throughout the years. His curiosity is piqued, and he assumes that it must be left behind by the Stevensons. It might give him some insights into who the family had once been before all of this happened to them. The Stevensons were a family of 5. 4 of them were hanged in the backyard, while the youngest daughter, Stephanie, vanished without a trace. She had been missing since it happened in 2011. If we line it up when this movie was released, Ellison moved in barely a year after the murders occurred. At first, I wondered why the broken tree limb from the beginning was still out there, but considering how short period of time it has been, I guess I'm not really that surprised. No one else had lived there. It's a difficult house to sell, and I'm sure it sure does explain why the sheriff is mad, though. Like, objectively, yeah, that's pretty tasteless. For now, Ellison leaves the reels alone in his office. He has plans to work after everyone else goes to sleep. And to their credit, they do try to keep the kids shielded from the more harsh parts of his work. They've explained that he does it in the best ways that they can, but Trevor is getting older and his curiosity about his father's research is starting to push his mother's boundaries. Once the kids are in bed, Ellison retreats to his office and locks the door. He studies some of the crime scene photos and some of the evidence, trying to figure out a place to start. That's when something catches his eye, a photo of the attic prior to them moving in and crime scene photos. In that photo, the box of film reels is not present, meaning that it has been placed there Since that time, someone has been in the house and placed that box there. Immediately, he sets up the projector and loads the first reel. We don't actually watch that footage as it's the Stevensons, but instead we focus on Ellison's reactions. It's one thing to know that a family was murdered there, it's something else entirely to see it happen. To realize that the murders were filmed by someone, to understand that this box might be the first thread in a much darker mystery. His response is completely human. He starts drinking. This is a man that has seen his fair share of crime scene photos, so you know that this is a new level of messed up for him. A noise interrupts him. He steps out to find his daughter has been wandering around the halls in the dark, looking for the bedroom. He helps her find her way to the bathroom and back to her bedroom, tucking her into bed, and then he returns to his movies. The next reel is labeled Barbecue 79. It begins innocently enough, a family fishing on a sunny day being captured from a distance. No one seems to know that they have been filmed. Then it shifts. We see the car chained up, a Molotov cocktail being thrown through the windshield. We witness the family burn alive inside, seeing their dark shadows writhing around. We know that there are children in the car. The entire family is incinerated, of course, except for one child. He dials, but then hangs up when the realization hits him. This could be the first step in writing the biggest book that he has ever written. He could potentially be the hero that solves a multi family murder. And these reels aren't just evidence, they are evidence of a serial killer who has been filming his murders, and it seems to have been going on for decades, if the years are to go by. He realizes that he could have it all back. He could have the fame, the respect from his family, and his bestseller reputation back. Not only could he write another groundbreaking true crime book, he might even solve some murders. It's implied he did something similar with Kentucky Blood. In his mind, the police have only stood in his way. Cracking this case could be huge, especially with a major body count like this. The noise pulls him from his thoughts, and he finds his son screeching and bending backwards out of a box. Travers is in the throes of a night terror and sleepwalk through the house. Both parents are rattled, and he was supposed to have outgrown this behavior a few years ago, but the move seems to be upsetting everyone. The next morning over breakfast, they discuss this. In the background, Ashley casually mentions that she has been having nightmares too, but her comment slips under the radar, being overshadowed by her brother's more dramatic episode. But I heard her. With the house empty again, Ellison returns to the reels. The next one is labeled as Pool Party 66. It starts out with a family splashing around in a pool. We go to the night where they are each strapped down to a pool lounger and dragged into the water. It seems as though the person had a little bit of a struggle a few times doing so, but they are helpless once they sink to the bottom of the pool. While Ellison is watching, he notices something weird. There is a person walking along the bottom of the pool. Ellison had Ellison hadn't noticed anything in the other reels, but in this one, it's just really hard to ignore because, like, he's a looming figure in a dark pool. Just as he focuses on the figure, the reel bursts into flames, as though it's doing some kind of like self edit after he noticed him. Ellison manages, or scramble, Ellison scrambles to salvage it, and he does, for the most part. He's already shaken when he comes out of his room, only to find his wife absolutely furious at him. Trevor had drawn an image of a family hanging from a tree in permanent marker on a whiteboard at school. Of course, the kids are going to easily find out what happened, and it's kind of absurd to figure like that it was only a year ago. Like this child went missing a year ago. This family was murdered a year ago. Like, how did you think no one was going to find out about this, Ellison? You're supposed to be smart. The one thing that is shocking is that it's not immediately mentioned that they moved into the exact house. Like, that would have been immediately said to this kid. Like, you moved into the girl who died's house. It hasn't yet, and the only reason I can figure is that like they're not directly telling the wife or the mom, so she doesn't want to hear about it. So they just don't tell her that they know. Either way, she just wants the benefit of another best-selling book without any of the moral baggage. Her selective outrage just kind of makes her seem a little bit silly at times. Later, Ellison gets the next reel ready. This time is Sleepy Time 98. This one is particularly brutal just because of how to the point it is. A family is just slaughtered in their beds with knives. Each murder so far uses a different method, but three things link them. One child is missing, the annihilation of every other member of this family, and the existence of these reels. Prior to Ellison, as far as he is aware, no one has ever seen these, other than the person that made them, who he assumes is the figure that has been seen at the bottom of the pool. If you're gonna go through the drama of filming the murders, might as well have a walk-on role. Here's the thing, it makes total sense why no one ever connected these murders. The only thing they actually have in common is the real. But Ellison is starting to uncover more and he needs some kind of confirmation. Are these reals as real as he suspects they are? He knows for sure that the Stevensons are real, but then that's because he lives at their house, but he has to find out about the others. Also, he really should have cleaned that up if he wanted to keep this secret from his wife. While reviewing one of the reels, Ellison notices a strange symbol painted on the wall. It sends him down a rabbit hole, trying to digitize the reels and analyzing them frame by frame for evidence. It's a little bit funny to watch him Google and figure things out like the clueless person's way. It's relatable. Because honestly, who knows how to edit 8mm reels in 2012? Later, he heads back up to the attic and finally finds the missing lid to the box. A snake is there as well, scaring the hell out of him. But as he looks at the lid, he sees children's drawings have been put all over it. Each one of them are a stick figure acting out the deaths that he had watched on the reels. Among them is a creepy reoccurring figure that he has started to notice more in the reels. He is labeled as Mr. Boogie, and honestly, I'm going to stick with that name for the sake of these reviews. Yes, I am aware that his full name is Bagul, but Mr. Boogie is funnier, and he is a little creepy. On the way to leave the attic, Ellison crashes through the floor and hits the floor below. It's bad enough that they have to call emergency services, but at least it does connect him to Deputy So and So, and that his official title. I don't make the rule on that name this time. Of everyone on the police force, Deputy So and So is the most receptive to Ellison, probably because he's a little bit of a fanboy. He even has a little fanboy moment at the crazy board, which I like that. Ellison gives him just enough information to keep him interested without revealing the full picture. What Ellison really needs is more context, where these families came from, and a little bit more about their background, just to see if there's anything that could connect them. Meanwhile, Ashley has started bringing her father coffee in the morning. It's basically the only time that she sees him, and she ends up falling kind of in the background. Ellison is doing a little bit of spiraling. He's drinking during the day, barely sleeping, and it's kind of starting to show in his relationships. The deputy does call back with information that Ellison was looking for. He's already made the connection himself. Every single family has previously lived in a house that another family had been murdered in. This means that Ellison has moved into his family into the same kind of situation. They don't think it's anything more than a serial killer, so a lot a human threat. While they're talking, Mr. Boogie gives us one of those signature creepy moments. He turns his head and looks at Ellison, despite being a still image. Ellison has a nightmare, small hands grabbing him and pulling him into the darkness. This is probably the third major clue that children are somehow involved with everything. The first being the children's drawing in the lid box, but whatever. Ellison hears the sound of the projector in his office and bolts. He just kind of figures that one of the kids has broken into his office and figured out somehow how to set up a projector. That would definitely not fly well with his wife. But neither of his kids are in there, but someone had been watching the Stevenson tape. As Ellison stares at the screen, he notices something that he had missed before. The pale face of Mr. Boogie far in the background of the video at the very edge of his backyard. The first time he was too horrified by everything to catch it. A noise draws him outside, holding a bat where he thinks Mr. Boogie is out there waiting for him. Instead, he finds his son in the ground, in the middle of another night terror. His wife runs over, and Ellison rushes them back inside to be safe. Ellison then goes back out to grab his bat, only to find a rather large dog growling at him. But the dog is not growling at Ellison. It's actually looking at the ghost children that are standing behind him. He can't see them, though, so he's pretty shaken up when he goes back inside and locks up behind. Deputy calls in the day with more information. The murders obviously go back decades. The murder really did happen back in 1966. Every case follows the same pattern. A family is slaughtered, one child is never seen again. When Ellison brings up a symbol that he found, the deputy suggests that he have a conversation with Professor Jonas. Occasionally, Jonas will consult the police when they have a occult-related crime. That's where we get the reveal that the symbol belongs to the Babylonian deity Bagul. He is known as the eater of children. He doesn't just kill children, though. He turns them rotten, lures them into his realm, and then devours them over time, which is honestly terrifying, and I wish that aspect of it had been explored more in the second movie. Ellison goes to bed rattled. Once again, he wakes up in the middle of the night to the sound of the projector playing in the other room. He turns it off and makes his way throughout the house, checking every lock. It's a little paranoid, unless you can see what we see. Ghost children are silently darting around him, watching from the shadows and running around. It's deeply unsettling, even if there aren't any jump scares. It's just scary that all of this is happening and Ellison doesn't see a single thing. He doesn't see any of the children that have gone missing haunting him. Deputy So and so has a meeting in Ellison's office, and Ellison admits that his wife has no idea that the house they live in was where the murder took place. The deputy is very glad that he will have nothing to do with that eventual explosion. Both men agree at some point she's going to find out. Why he doesn't just confess escapes me. The deputy also mentions that Ellison has been drinking a lot lately. Every time that he visited, there has been a bottle of whiskey nearby. Ellison brushes it off, but he can't really deny that he's spiraling. The deputy makes one smart suggestion without knowing what happens to just pack up and get the hell out of there. Things come to a head when Ashley gets in trouble for painting outside of her room, and in the process drops a bomb that ruins Ellison's day. She has been talking to the little girl that her father is writing about, and that she used to live in the very house. This is the breaking point for Tracy, and she sends her daughter to her room. She then unleashes her fury onto Ellison. The fight is uncomfortable because you kind of understand both sides. She doesn't want her kids to expose to things like that. He's terrified of losing his family and desperate to save his career. And to their credit, they manage to reconcile before going to bed. Ellison wakes up in the middle of the night, and this time, he sees the ghost children. They are standing in Ashley's bedroom and kind of popping out throughout the house. Then, out of nowhere, he gets an entire Mr. Boogie jump scare, and it got me too, I will admit it. That's it. That's all that Ellison needs to see. He is so out of there. He wakes everyone up in the middle of the night, gets them in their car, and you get the hell out of there. They grab the bare necessities before just getting out of the house. Sheriff Fred Thompson pulls them over when he's speeding to get out of the county. Ellison promises that he will not be returning to the area and that there will be no book. The sheriff doesn't ask any questions, just nods, asks him to keep under the speed limit until they get out of the county. The Oswalds return to their old home. Ellison settles into his old office, drinks some coffee, and breathes like a man that has saved his family. He had burned the box of reels before leaving in hopes that this chapter is closed for good. Then Professor Jonas gives him a call. He's still trying to talk about occult lore, but is concerned by Ellison's growing desperation applying lore to the real world. They are in two different movies, though. Jonas is dealing with a mystery crime situation. Ellis is pure supernatural horror. That is when Ellison finds a box of reels that include the extended cuts. He puts them together and sees the ends, when the missing children prove to not be victims of Mr. Boogie, but the killers of their family. And looking back, it makes sense. None of the methods of murder really required, like, adult level abilities. Knowing simple machines was honestly enough for a lot of them to do like the heavy lifting that you really would expect from an adult. At the end of each extended reel, the missing child comes onto the screen, goes shh, and that's the end. Ellison realizes far too late that he is in immediate danger. Ashley is standing in the room with him, and the world is starting to get a little bit fuzzy. She had been bringing him his coffee for a while, and he stopped really thinking anything of it. The movie had subtly framed Trevor as the more vulnerable one, the one more likely to fall under Mr. Boogie's influence, but Ashley falling into the background was really vulnerability. She drugged Ellison, Tracy, and Trevor. She drags her brother and mother into the room, picks up an axe, and films her murdering them. Before killing her father, she promises that she's going to make him famous again. And in a twisted way, she does. He may not have gotten another hit, but maybe somebody else will write about him. The film closes with Mr. Boogie carrying Ashley away into his realm. The walls of the Oswald home are covered in childlike paintings using her family's blood. It veers just a little bit too close to goofy for my taste, but Mr. Boogie himself keeps it from falling apart. Credit to where it is due, the acting is solid. The design and concept of Mr. Boogie works really well. But let's be real, without the disturbing 8mm films, this real film really just it wouldn't have hit. They're the engine that drives the horror, and there needs to be a growing horror in both realms. Unfortunately, while this formula is attempted in a sequel, it doesn't carry the same weight. We really need someone that takes the plot as seriously as a heart attack like Ethan Hawke does. It also helps that he's an adult with rationality on his side, going into the whole thing. The Oswald family story ends here, but like they're briefly mentioned in the sequel. Sinister 2 came out in 2015, a solid 3 years after the original. Scott Derrickson and C. Robert Cargill both return to take part in the writing, and James Ransone returns as Deputy So-and-so. The director this time around is Claren Foy. He is most known for the movies Citadel and Eli, and I actually really like Eli. He's pretty good working with creepy kids. The star of this movie, other than Ransone, are Shannon Sosamon, Tate Ellington, and John Beasley. Sosamon is most known for A Knight's Tale, The Holiday, and Road to Nowhere. Ellington is most known for Remember Me and Law and Order, Organized Crime, and Beasley is most known for The Purge, Anarchy, Everwood, and Rudy. The movie opens with a brutal image, one that hasn't happened yet. Are hanging from crosses with bags over their head, and one of them is set on fire. We watch a boy hide under his blankets while ghostly children try to lure him out to watch something. We know what that means. This boy's name is Dylan, and he's in a bit of a difficult situation. His mother Courtney has taken him and his twin brother after a violent outburst from their father again. A particularly bad one, apparently. She wants to keep the boys safe, but it's complicated. Dylan seems to have borne the brunt of the abuse, with Zach showing some unsettling behaviors that have developed during his own abuse. They're kind of diverging personality wise. The family is now living in another murder house, complete with its own set of reels and a camera. It's not really explained why there are different ghost children following different boxes. I get that they just don't want to use the reels from the previous movie. That would be boring, and the age change would be obvious. So we get a new setting and a new lineup of ghost children that have slaughtered their families. We also get a reintroduction to Deputy So-and-so. He was no longer on the force as he was fired due to the way things shook out in the last movie. He says it's because he was helping Ellison and getting him information that he probably should have been keeping to himself. He's on his own now, working as a private investigator for real, while trying to hunt down all the boxes and burn the houses down before someone else can move in. It sounds as though he's been doing a solid job, though, in his defense. Either way, the deputy is a private investigator doing this on the side. Then his free time is spent trying to find Mr. Boogie's boxes and getting rid of them so he can end his reign of terror. Unfortunately for Courtney and her kids, they have moved into this house, and although he's been doing a good job after the fact, he has not actually stopped anyone directly from being murdered. Meanwhile, Courtney's abusive husband is looking for her and the boys, and he has sent someone after her to find out where they are. They are in a constant state of fear of him finding them, and she's doing her best to keep them safe. Dylan is clearly the more sensitive of the two children, while Zach is frankly unlikable from the moment that we meet him. He's just a bully. It's portrayed like Dylan's more vulnerable nature makes him an obvious target for the ghost children. The main ghost that interacts with him is Milo, the most recent child to the Mr. Boogie collection. Milo lures Dylan into the basement where the reels are kept and shows him a recording. The first one that we see with Dylan starts a fishing trip that devolves into a greatly horrifying scene where the victims are fed to alligators. They are hanging upside down and just eaten. It's effective, and the first bite is a genuine shock. Dylan wants nothing to do with the films. He's horrified, and you can see him physically react in horror. I do appreciate that we get the perspective of a child being groomed by the ghost kids. It's an interesting approach to the sequel. You get the sense that they tailor their approach to the kids' emotional vulnerabilities. In Dylan's case, he has been repeatedly a target for his father's rage, and he's kind of a doormat. The dynamic that he has with his twin brother makes it easy for them to be manipulated against each other. Well, for Zach to be manipulated, really, because Dylan doesn't really know what's going on. That resentment is kind of Zach not feeling as though he's the favored child. His father seems to show him a slight preference, and I mean that in he's not quite as physically abusive and aggressive with Zach that we see, but he's still a victim. He's living in this household. But because of that, his mother ends up spending a lot of her time worrying about Dylan, so he doesn't take being rejected by the ghost kids with any grace at all. But I mean, they're kids. Who's going to have grace about that? When the deputy had called the real estate agent about the property, he was told that the house was empty and no one had moved in since it happened. But when he arrives with his gas can to burn the place down, he sees two twin boys outside in the yard. Courtney is equally terrified, coming out thinking that she had been found by someone willing to do a little further than the average private investigator. The deputy quickly hides the gasoline when she approaches him and lets her get out all of her feelings. He takes in the situation, understands what's going on, and reassures her that he has no idea what she's talking about, that he is not out here trying to work for anyone like that. The deputy admits that he is there for an entirely separate reasons, and this was just a terrible coincidence. On the surface, Ellison Oswald's murder is apparently common knowledge, probably just that his family was annihilated and his daughter was taken. The same thing that has happened time and time again. I imagine like that was probably linked with the Stevensons, which probably the house probably got demolished, is what I'm gonna guess. Not realizing that the house isn't the problem. Courtney admits that she knows the history of the place, which is exactly why the house was still on the market, so she felt safe staying there. They haven't had much luck selling it, and she knows the current owner, so it wasn't really a big deal. She had permission to stay there, just no one knew about it. Surprisingly, Courtney and the deputy get along really well. He's the first adult she's been able to talk to in a while, and he feels like a responsibility to save this nice woman and her good kids from becoming a victim to Mr. Boogie. Well, good kid. Deputy is concerned that the tragedy is inevitable. Still, he promises not to tell anyone about the presence of them at this house. Uh, Not that it wouldn't benefit him in any way to tell anyone that they're staying there. His priority is to keep her from moving away, so he's not going to tell anyone that might take her away. Like, he needs to find a way to get Mr. Boogie gone. That night, the boys are watching Night of the Living Dead. Courtney scolds them for watching something that will only give them nightmares, which she's not entirely wrong. Dylan has been having some pretty terrible dreams lately. The ghost children offer him a deal. The nightmares will stop if he agrees to watch one of the reels. He agrees to watch so that he has a little bit of peace while trying to sleep. The reel starts as a cheerful Christmas morning turned into the most boring mode of murder present so far. And it really did kind of kill the vibe a little bit. The family is bound and partially buried under the snow, wearing only their pajamas. Their skin darkens as frostbite takes hold. For Dylan, he's not having a good time. He's disturbed and wants nothing to do with any of that. Nightmares are not. He refuses to watch another reel, even though he's promised he'd never have another nightmare again. He goes back to bed. But he can't escape the ghost children during the day. They're out there waiting for him, watching his every move. A constant reminder of the reels and the horrors that he has been watching instead of sleeping. That, plus the rest of the stress, he's really more vulnerable than most. The change in house isn't doing Dylan any good. It's still better than living with his father, so there is that. Zach shoves Dylan outside, and he reveals casually that he can also see the ghost children. That did make me wonder, like, can all the children see the ghost kids? Like, Ashley and Trevor didn't have like a lot of interactions with each other. Like, we really did not get into that all in the first movie, but I like they were both having nightmares. It's just that Trevor like did sleepwalking. So maybe there was a different dynamic being played there. So different manipulation tactics for different families. I guess that makes sense. The shove escalates into a fight between the brothers, Courtney intervening as quickly as she can. For now, it's nothing catastrophic, but the twins are straight up not having a good time. The deputy gets permission from Courtney to investigate the abandoned church, still a major question mark in the story at this point. It is both the best reel in the movie, but also the worst payoff for how much it is built up. The assistant has been combing through Jonas's research, and Allison's final phone call and subsequent death left a heavy impact on the professor. Fortunately, the deputy is around when Dylan urinates himself when his father arrives at the house. He's brought the police, fully intent on taking the kids back and removing them from Courtney's custody. The deputy quickly steps in and points out that he brought the wrong department with him and that this is not a custody dispute how are handled. So he was going to have to try again at a later time. For now, Courtney and her children remain at the murder house, but the situation is getting dangerous for everyone involved. The deputy's actual knowledge of the law really helps them out, forcing the father and the police to leave. But the father vows to return and get his kids the next time. The deputy warns against Courtney's gut instinct of running away, reminding her that she could end up in serious legal trouble because the cops were just there. He's not wrong, but his motivation is layered. He needs her to stay for the Mr. Boogie situation. She can't leave. He stays at the house that night. The tension eases slightly as he bonds with Dylan, gets along with Zach, and grows closer to Courtney. That night, Dylan gets another reel and it involves a family painting their kitchen. The color choice makes me think of the 1970s. It changes to the kitchen having been flooded with the family bound in the water. Something is dropped and everything goes up in electricity. The violent jerks of the body is honestly really effective. It made me very uncomfortable. As Dylan returns upstairs, Zack is just jealous. He lashes out in anger, upset that he is not getting the attention from the ghost children that his brother is. He has been chosen, though, in a weird way. They are both being groomed, they just need to get the heat up. The deputy heads to the university in the morning, unsure what Jonas's assistant has uncovered. When he arrives there, he finds the man alone in the classroom, drinking. It doesn't take long to see why. Among Jonas's notes, his assistant had discovered a ham radio that shows the pattern of Mr. Boogie murders just confined to the reels, and that there is overlap between this because, like, this one, like, the ham radio takes place in 1973, and there are reels from the 1960s from the previous movie. So, like, it's like cross. Basically, what I'm saying is that there's like so many ways Mr. Boogie has been able to like get into kids and like have this whole thing done. It could have been cool if it was like a YouTube video or something. That would have been interesting. I'm not mad at the 8mm because I like that filming, but like you could have tried something different. Radio emits a string of numbers, which the radio emits a string of numbers that the assistant identifies as coordinates, which leads to a house in Norway. That family had a family annihilation where a girl went missing. The radio has an audio recording of this girl killing her family. Like, the carnage is real, it's just not really clear what's happening, just that people are dying. Mr. Boogie shall adapt. The problem is the revelation doesn't change much. We already knew these things. Mr. Boogie is an ancient entity that lures one child to commit the sin of slaughtering their family. Once the act is complete, he drags the child into his realm and feasts on their soul. Vincent D'Onofrio explained this far better in the first movie, and this discovery is retreading old ground. While the deputy drinks and deals with his knowledge, chaos erupts at the house. Dylan gets absolutely wrecked by Zack, who is being fueled by the ghost kid's taunts. You can almost imagine Mr. Boogie watching from the shadows, savoring the unfolding drama. When Courtney intervenes, Dylan snaps at her. He calls her out on not doing anything to protect him, and Zack just throws the C word down. For a split second, you do kind of wonder if Courtney is going to slap him, something that Zack notices as well, and he wastes no time throwing it in her face. This family is rapidly unraveling. That night, Dylan finally sees the infamous church reel, the one that has been teased from the very beginning, and to their credit, it is one of the better ones in the movie. I will say that the alligator one was better. Milo puts his reel on, and we see his family tied to the floor of the church, sacks covering their heads as he gets some good views of them. Milo places live rats underneath metal bowls and puts hot coals on top of the metal. The heat causes the rats to tunnel downward through the victims' bodies. It's an actual historical torture method, and I went down a rabbit hole. So enjoy! The story was covered in The Rise of the Dutch Revolt, which was published in 1883 by John Lothrop Motley. A man named Diederik Sonoy used it during the Dutch Revolt, and Motley discovered it in a letter. He trapped a rat under pottery and put a hot coal on top. Indeed, the rat chewed through the prisoner's stomach and it killed him. The author even adds the footnote at the bottom, quote, "The whole letter is a wonderful monument of barbarity." Sorry for the tangent. I just got curious and I couldn't stop from digging. I honestly wish that there had been that much interest in the idea of this movie as I had this random tangent. I feel like this was just like a nice little side. Like, I'm sorry. It feels like they wanted to cash in on the success of the original and it had to get something out fast. Like, I know 3 years is not as fast as some of these movies are produced. Like, this is harsh, but the truth is, this movie is just boring. I appreciate the focus on the kids, but that just falls flat. It would have been more interesting if we got to see a child descend into madness. I doubt Ashley was ever chomping at the bit to kill her family, but she did it and it hit like a freight train. And yet, honestly, it doesn't make sense why they would pick Dylan. He isn't falling for their stuff, and like, even really scary nightmares aren't getting him moving in their direction. Zack is just kind of a dick the entire time, so it's not really that shocking when he's a dick. Dylan was never meant to be the killer. The film needed to lean into the ghost kids having more of an impact on him. He didn't really like them. He was really only doing it out of what he thought was necessity to not have bad dreams. Meanwhile, Zach could have had like an actual arc, starting as a deeply scarred child of abuse, dealing with a lot of anger, and trying to impress his new ghost friends, friends that told him he's special and worth being taken care of too. That kind of manipulation would have been cool. Instead, it's like a weird jealousy thing. If nightmares were driving Zach's engagement with the ghost kids, it's never really mentioned. Instead, Dylan just keeps refusing to watch a reel after one. Only this time he runs into Mr. Boogie waiting for something to happen in the house. Something does. Their father returns, with the right department, to enforce the custody transfer. He tells Courtney she will never see her children again. She knows that if she lets him take the kids, no one will fight for them, so she follows along. That night at the family dinner table, everything unravels quickly. Dylan can barely function being back in the environment, and his anxiety about setting his father off sets his father off. He snaps because Dylan isn't eating fast enough. The scene is uncomfortable but necessary because without it, someone out there would try to excuse his behavior. There's always one. The guy is just an abusive asshole father who thrives on the control that he lords over his family. He's connected, so he gets away with it. No one ever tells him no. He's friends with the police and unafraid to leverage that power. Zach is more than happy to go home because that means that he can finally kick off his own movie. He starts immediately, happy to film a family picnic. It does make the family look like normal, and it's kind of creepy considering you can also see what's actually happening, which is Dylan's getting yelled at while the deputy is driving. Just picture him cruising along endless cornfields because that's about how useful he is at this point. He does eventually find out that they've been forced to return to their home, but that's about it. I know that they needed him to leave so that the plot could move forward, but that whole meeting with the assistant could have been a video call or hell, even an email. That night, the real horror begins. The family is tied to a makeshift cross in the cornfield. It's the scene that we saw in the very beginning, and we learn that the first person set on fire by Zack is his father. He doesn't even hesitate. He's too happy recording his abuser going up in flames. When he's getting ready to pick either his mother or his brother, the deputy arrives. The deputy manages to knock Zach down long enough to free Dylan and Courtney. The three of them make a break for the house, but Zach isn't done. Just because plan A was a failure doesn't mean that he can't make up with a plan B. He grabs the camera, a scythe, and breaks off after them. Inside, the Kills kids stir up some chaos. They're tossing things and helping Zach chase down his family members. As it turns out, it is harder to hunt down people that know you are, in fact, a scrawny child. Zach zeroes in on the blood trail from the deputy. The deputy smashes the camera and reel in pieces in an attempt to put an end to it all. If we hadn't already seen Ellison do that in the last movie, setting it on fire, bringing it down completely, and know that doesn't have any permanent effect on what's going to happen for the rest of the movie, that might have been something. But that action sends Zach into an absolute meltdown. He runs upstairs where Mr. Boogie is. The reel is going up in flames, and he does not look happy. He does not look happy one bit. Not that he has much of a face to actually express that with, but he seems a bit more hostile than normal. The screen goes up in flames and Zack rapidly decays, his flesh rotting away until only his skeletal image is burned onto the screen. Then the house is going up in flames. The three survivors escape the house and stop by the motel so the deputy can get his things and they can just go. But he discovers the ham radio from the university has mysteriously ended up there, turning on. We can hear the children coming through, and then we get a Mr. Boogie jump scare. It's not as though lackluster sequels are rare, but when you base films has the title for most scientifically scary movie, maybe it should have been better to never try. I think that would have worked with some tweaks, but it fizzles and ultimately it's forgettable. Like I said, it's not the worst sequel ever, not anywhere near it. But Sinister was never really a movie that needed a sequel. It's not that the killer is dead, it's just that you know what to expect after seeing it once. First movie worked because we are uncovering a mystery through the eyes of an adult and we're experiencing the horror that just incomprehensible. He's got all these murders that just happened and they're in front of him and he's trying to make sense of these things that wouldn't otherwise be connected. Ellison was torn between doing the right thing and chasing his dreams. There was a heavy weight on him to go against his knee-jerk moral reaction and we saw it. The internal conflict gave us a little depth behind the person that we were following. We're engaged in his world, following around him, because of choices that he continues to make and lies that he chooses to tell. He says he's trying to put his family first and doing everything, but that's not it. Dare I say that Sinister could be considered a little bit of a character study of Ellison Oswald? A look into desperate true crime author that has managed to make him famous after finding something 10 years ago. He's been chasing that sense, how desperate people are to cling on to fame, especially looking at people that use the deaths of others to make themselves famous. Sinister 2 follows an unnamed deputy trying to keep a family alive. We also see some creepy reels. There's a lot happening with the family and those dynamics, but no one's really acknowledging how fucked up those kids are. Like, yes, Dylan is horrified by what he sees with the ghost children in the reels, but like, that's it. I just really don't think that he reacted to watching people get murdered with nearly enough horror. Like, he just looks mildly spooked and goes to bed. Maybe he doesn't think that they're entirely real? Ellison was horrified by what he was seeing, tormented. We don't see that. No adult sees the reels and knows what kind of. And Sinister 2 killed any hope for a series, although I don't think there was ever should have been a series. It should have been left as it was, but it's not the worst.